I will not go into that debate because clearly my sister has not understood the evolution of different religions of the world. So we do not see ourselves as a black elite. Of course, we cannot dictate to groups what ideology they want to adopt. If they want to call us an elite, it's up to them. But we believe that South Africa, after 3.5 centuries, does not in 2013 have a black elite. What we do have, and this again is statistics from the researchers, is a black middle class and a black lower middle class. According to the latest research of 2012, 60% of South Africans belong to what they call the floating lower middle class. In other words, they go up and down. They go under the middle class, they go up to the lower middle class, and so on. That is what South Africa has been able to produce. It has not been able to produce the South Africa of our dreams. When we came to power in 1994, we were confronted with two challenges. The first challenge, because remember, we did not take South Africa by the barrel of the gun. We went through a prolonged and a protracted negotiation process, which invariably saw us making concessions in order to move forward. Like our old leaders have always said, sometimes you need to engage the reverse gear of your car in order to move forward. You can't move forward all the time, because one of the great speakers on this issue, Colin Bundy, clearly states that you do not create the conditions in which you make a revolution. Of course, he's also quoting the old classical scholars of the 19th century. Upon assuming the reins, the political government of the ANC saw that the restructuring of the economy of South Africa is its priority. But it also saw that the spreading of that economy to everybody in the country was a vademecum of that process. You could not achieve one to the exclusion of the other. I want to agree again with my sister, who just sat down, and indeed with Nkosi Nathi, that we have not achieved that. We have not achieved the distribution of the economy of South Africa in a way that it gets to each and everybody's hand. When you look at the reports of the two very important research works done in South Africa and Germany, the Adenauer Stiftung report done together with the University of Stellenbosch in Cape Town, as well as the research of the Western Cape University, they were researching the effect to which these black politicians are in fact in power, both in terms of policy development, in economic management, as well as in governing the country. All these reports agree that yes, the majority of the people in government are black, but the truth of the matter is that the economy of the country is in white hands. That's a fact. And again, it goes back to the 1996 Truth and Reconciliation process, which Nkosi Nathi alluded to. It was a one-sided process. I'm not criticizing President Mandela because he was driving this, but the truth of the matter is that it was a one-sided process, and reconciliation can never be a one-sided process. Those who have always had a responsibility for the fiscus, for the financial resources of our country, had not guaranteed anything to assist the new government to achieve the second leg of its objective, namely the sustenance of our people and the sharing of the economy with the rest of our people. The release last year of the National Planning Commission report indicates very clearly that we still have a big gap between the races. Yes, I agree with Marcus Garvey, race first, because you cannot reach to a non-racial society without taking cognizance of the disparities between the races. In order to get them to one, you have to recognize that individually they have disparities. One of the main problems with our unemployed, when you go to South Africa, you will see this staring you in the face. I was discussing it with one young man from the University of Fort Hare. For as long as our institutions are unable to teach an education system which is different from the Bantu education system of Dr. Verwoerd, which emphasized the importance of the necktie and looking like an Englishman, and looked down upon work, physical work, productive labor, our children are going to go without participation in the economy. Our children go to these universities, they acquire university degrees and go home and remain unemployed, because the philosophy of training black children for job seeking, which is another Verwoerdian philosophy. Black people were created by God to serve white people, because they are strong, they can cut the wood and carry the water. Our children are still trained for servitude, not for being in charge of their destinies. Bantu made a very important speech in 1970 when he raised this issue of black consciousness. People must be conscious of their blackness. I won't go to the Rhodes Grandstand Conference of 1968. I'll discuss that one day with you. How the Anglican Students' Organization was the driving force of that black understanding of the importance of black consciousness. What he said in 1970 was that we must first stop defining ourselves by the white people, non-whites, non-blacks. We must not define ourselves as such. And I'm afraid in 2013, many a black person in South Africa still has not inculcated that philosophy of be black and proud, as it was espoused by those who developed it. Today, young people comprise the bulk of our communities. We are told that the German society is an aging society, but the South African society is a very young society. Most of them are graduates and unemployed because they do not have the skills that are needed by the economy. They do not have the skills for managing the economy. I believe we can convert this youth bulge into a demographic bulge, where our people make it a dividend to be black and have access to all these economic resources. They should be equipped to participate in the economy and create it. They must create jobs for others, but most economies in the world are sustained by SMMEs. So our youth must also be assisted to get into the small and medium enterprise sector. South Africa also continues to export mostly primary products. Only last year we began to hear the shift from producing these and sending them abroad to actually beneficiating South Africans, training them to cut the diamond before sending it to Belgium, training them to process the gold and before you send it to America and other people. The latest focus of extracting mineral resources has a great capacity for our people if it is properly handled. But the companies are still owned by foreigners. Only the other day, we had the disasters at Marikana where they were striking miners and police shooting them. When we phoned home to find out what's going on, we were shocked, not really shocked, to hear that the miners, that the mines were owned by a British company, which had owned it for decades ago. So we cannot train our children if we cannot access them ownership of these mines, of these mineral resources, of the skills to beneficiate them. And this brings us to the role of the middle class. A middle class consensus is defined as a high share of income for middle class and low degree persons within a division of community. A middle class consensus distinguishes development success from failures. A middle class consensus is also associated with more education, better health, better infrastructure, better economic policies, less political instability, less civil war, more social modernization, according to a professor of economics from the New York University. The above quotation by William Easterly points to the kind of role the middle class can play to achieve levels of economic development even in our own country, and indeed in other developing countries of the world. For reasons already underscored, South Africa historically does not have a black elite. However, the rapid growth of the black middle class and upper classes has been a widely reported phenomenon, which is significant in light of the importance of the contribution of the black elite towards the country's public fiscus through their purchasing power. South Africa's black middle class is growing very fast, thanks to our robust and growing private sector. Local entrepreneurs as well as foreign investors have gradually got to grips with the affirmative action initiative that we introduced. The availability of stable, secure, well-paid jobs and improved access to jobs and skills. The availability of employability and access to higher levels of tertiary education. All this is assisting in the fast growth of the middle class. Of course, some of these beneficiaries come from different parts of Africa and the world, and that is good, because after all is said and done, South Africa must belong to all who live in it. In recent years, we have witnessed how countries in Europe have struggled with mass protests against policies and economies, experiences that have taken jobs from their own children. Our economy has showed the signs of great resistance and resilience. And to that end, we thank those who have been able to guide our economies very responsibly. The expansion of the middle class in South Africa revitalized our economy, and it will continue to revitalize it as they continue to aspire for ownership of vehicles, refrigerators, television sets, washing machines, cell phones, and the rest. And as long as their attitude to education, health, and labor issues improves, and their contribution in the development of the quality of those continues to improve. With their high income, they help to broaden the tax net, which is essential for any government to spend on infrastructure development and job creation. With appropriate skills and education to middle class, we create jobs in their own businesses as they themselves become entrepreneurs. Last but not least, we must point out that not all the middle class or elite class is necessarily progressive. So what we are saying is not necessarily generally so of all middle class people and elite in different parts of the world. They must not be aloof from the people if they are a progressive middle class. They must participate in the fora where policy trends are debated. This is important because there they can introduce and lead the policies that are suitable for the South Africa of our dreams. To do so, to abdicate is their own responsibility, is also to abdicate providing informed leadership to their communities and their countries. The message of Bantu Biko is as relevant today as it was in the 1970s. Black people must redeem themselves. They must not wait to be redeemed. They must redeem themselves from the idea that they are inferior and that to be black is something to be shunned. Many people, in the 70s, we even cut the wigs from ladies because they were giving us the impression that they relent in wanting to be wanted. They want white hair, they want white chasing creams and so on. And so we went around cutting their hair. And I can tell you, many of us were convinced in that strategy. Of course, it was quite reactionary. Today, with hindsight, looking back, we must say we were trembling on the rights of these ladies to decide what dresses and what hairstyle to have. But for consciousness and mobilization, those were very important tactics and they worked. The black elite, which has struggled with their identity and developed confidence and know-how, should ask themselves the question, if not us doing these things for ourselves, who must? Because we are the future which our country has been waiting for. This is a call that we want to leave with this conference, and this is a call we've been carrying in our hearts for the last 49 years of struggle. Thank you very much indeed.